Total grazing to avoid overgrazing. Welcome to this podcast of Real World Ranching, where our goal is to help you reach your maximum profitability while your land improves the fastest. I am Jaime Elizondo, and today I will speak about how to use total grazing to increase our productivity and stocking rate, while at the same time make sure we avoid overgrazing that does so much harm to pastures and ranges. Many cattlemen confuse overgrazing with an efficient harvest by the cows. There is nothing further from the truth. We need to consider how the plant functions and how livestock graze if we allow them to do their will. When we leave livestock in a paddock for more than one day, they start to select the best species and parts of plants that they prefer. This means that the best or desirable species will be consumed all the way down to the ground, and the undesirable species will be avoided, allowing them to take over your field. We need to remember, plants compete above ground for sunlight and below ground for nutrients and water. Besides, some of them secrete toxic compounds in their roots that inhibit the development of their competitors, which helps them become dominant if they are not taken down by grazing, the same as the more desirable species. So let's start by defining what is overgrazing. And this is important, as we have been given a wrong definition. Overgrazing happens when an individual plant is regrazed or cattle return to graze it again before it has fully recovered. I'm going to repeat it. Overgrazing happens when an individual plant is regrazed before it has fully recovered from the first grazing. It's not the same as total grazing, where if a correct rest period has been given, it will promote leaf production and a better leaf-to-stem ratio, which allows the plant to be more productive, increase humus production, and create fat roots full of energy reserves. Under total grazing, we try to achieve the highest harvest efficiency possible. And in practice, in the real world, we achieve 80 to 90% harvest efficiency. This is very high, as when forage is machine cut, they obtain less harvest efficiency than that. I'm going to give a definition. The rest period at a given stocking rate on a ranch or farm depends on harvest efficiency of the grazing. And this is best measured as cow days harvested per grazing event. We also need to know that doing selective grazing, our livestock needs to come back to regraze sooner to the same field or paddock at the same stocking rate, which creates overgrazing when forage growth slows down if we use the high stocking rates required for profitability these days. We also know that a field or paddock with a longer rest period produces more forage than with shorter rest periods. Under selective grazing, where only around 30% of the available forage is harvested, this means you only harvest a third of the possible cow days. Now let's consider the consequences of this. Under selective grazing, the grazing method most used, which is by definition a lower quantity of forage or grass is harvested compared to total grazing, normally 30 to 50% less. The harvest cow days per acre in each ranch or farm determines how many days of rest there are between that grazing and the next when the herd returns, which is defined as the rest period. By harvesting up to 90% of the available forage, it gives us a rest period which is 3 times longer than by only harvesting 30% of the available forage. When we have high stocking rates, which are necessary for profitability, the herd returns to regraze the first paddock under selective grazing before it has fully recovered in a dry year. In these dry years, they start to create bare soil areas in dry environments and a change in species composition from desirable to undesirable in more humid environments. Under total grazing, this doesn't occur, and we can defer whole paddocks of the property, thanks to the longer rest period that give us higher productivity even in dry years. My students at Total Grazing School understand this very well and have increased their productivity per year. Now there is more. By avoiding overgrazing, our forage's roots turn fatter and deeper, and this creates resiliency and higher grass productivity. Every year that we do this total grazing and in the deferred paddocks, we give a longer time for the soil to return to be spongy and the better forage species to return and reproduce. This would be impossible to achieve under selective grazing at the very high stocking rates required for profitability nowadays. If you're one of my students, you have already observed this in your fields or paddocks. Now, would you like to achieve the same? High stocking rates, double of what can be achieved with selective grazing the very first year, besides higher forage productivity in dry years, and the peace of mind of knowing that you have a forage reserve in area where the best forage species are thriving, humus is increasing, and the soil starts to turn spongy, enabling it to retain more rainfall and allow the correct gas interchange for an even higher future productivity. It can be done, and it's being done. You only need to change some definitions and be a good observer. And remember, always, but always maintain your livestock in good body condition, as a fat cow or ewe can give you profits while a thin cow only brings pity. Now, I'm going to go to the takeaway points. Number one, overgrazing means regrazing an individual plant before it has fully recovered. It has nothing to do with the intensity or severity of the grazing. It's a time function. Number two, total grazing avoids overgrazing even at very high stocking rates thanks to a longer rest period, which allows your best forage species to attain maximum productivity. Three, competition between desirable and undesirable plants takes place above and below ground. Therefore, it is important that all plants are grazed down to the same level so they can start anew at the same level. Four, the number of cow days harvested per grazing event determines in a real farm or ranch how long is the rest period. Five, this allows us to defer whole paddocks as standing hay for the difficult seasons. And this is much cheaper than feeding out stored forages like hay or silage. And six, our future productivity increases thanks to the increasing humus and best desirable species coming back. And even more, by achieving a higher number of growing points per square yard, which will give you more leaf produced per acre per year. So see you soon. Make sure to subscribe to my podcast in Spotify, iTunes, or YouTube. You can also join our weekly email at www.rwranching.com/join. Have a great day.